Good afternoon and welcome to the COVID-19 update meeting. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted online at wasac.org/coronavirus within 48 hours. If you have any questions or comments, please use the chat feature located at the bottom of your meeting window. All entries in the chat window and this recording will be retained as a public record. If you would like to speak, please use the raise hand button under the participants section. For those participating by phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9 and then today's moderator will call on you. If more than one commissioner from a county is participating in today's meeting, this meeting should have been noticed as a public meeting. Any guests in attendance should remain muted. Thank you for joining today, and now I would like to welcome Jamie Bodden and Derek Anderson.
Thanks, Jason, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Hopefully you are all enjoying some beautiful weather out there. As we get kicked off, we're going to have Jamie give a quick update on where things are at in county phases. I know they're frozen right now, but any updates she might be able to provide and just any other updates from DOH. So Jamie, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Derek. So I just wanted to provide a couple of updates for you all. Since it's been a couple of weeks since we've met and chatted, the masking order has been in effect now for a couple of days, and it seems that it's going well for most areas and most jurisdictions. I will say that Department of Health and your local health jurisdictions are working really closely with OSPI and your local schools on figuring out some reopening strategies. I'm sure that's on everybody's mind, especially those with parents or with kids, not parents, with kids for the school year. And one of the hot topics of discussion for schools is masking and the challenges that provides to have kids mask and some of the nuances there. So one of the things that we've asked from the local level to the state is more clarification on what would be appropriate masks for different settings, whether that's school, whether that's the public, whether that's the workplace, to really reinforce using the right mask for the right situation. So we're hoping that that guidance and that clarification comes out soon. There's a number of state agencies that are working on masking issues. So for like the general public, that seems to be the Department of Health. For employees in a more workplace safety environment, that tends to be L&I, although they are catching a lot of the complaints and other issues around masking. And then as the business employer, kind of the more business side of things, that tends to be commerce. So multiple state agencies often tends to lead itself to confusion. And so we've been kind of trying to figure out how to coordinate and get some consistent messaging with the Department of Health and clarification. So hoping that that can come out in the near future. I know a lot of you and your local health jurisdictions have been doing a lot around promoting mask use, and we definitely want to see that continue. In regards to the pause on the county variance ordinances, the state is very, very cautious. We're still seeing cases increase, and we're seeing cases increase in a trajectory that we don't like. A lot of the cases that we've seen this past week have been directly linked to either Father's Day events and parties and gatherings, or other house parties, gatherings, and events, whether that's graduation or whatever. Knowing that we just had a major, pretty significant holiday over the weekend, we're anticipating in the next 2 weeks to see something similar again. With that in mind, I think the state is going to continue to be cautious to see how things, how testing results and how case counts are impacted from the 4th of July holiday. So might not be the news that you all are hoping for, but I think they want to play it safe because they want to continue that trajectory. So we might see that pause continue through the month of July, which is frustrating, but I think as we see the impacts of people becoming more mobile and people gathering more, especially over the holiday weekend and in anticipation of the school year starting, particularly universities, I think that's probably going to be the prudent course of action. So those are the two things I really wanted to update you all that has kind of happened from public health this week. I'm going to stay on the line and I'll help Derek monitor the chat box. So if you do have questions later, I'll be around to be able to answer those as well.
All right, thanks, Jamie. As Jamie mentioned, if you've got any questions, feel free to enter those in the chat box, or you can raise your hand. If you're on the phone only, you can press *9, and that'll indicate that we need to unmute you so that you can answer or ask any questions. Just trying to give some folks some time to see if there are any questions for Jamie before we move on. And it doesn't look like any's coming in. So we're going to go ahead and move on to an update from Melanie, who's going to provide a quick update about OPMA and mask requirements for local government. So Melanie, if you're there, can you take it away?
Okay, thanks, Derek. So just finishing with masking, since Jamie just left that topic, we had received questions on one of these calls or via email from you all regarding whether county governments were supposed to also implement the no mask, no service like businesses are. And so we talked on our weekly call with the governor's office yesterday, we talked to them, asked what they were doing. State agencies are following the protocol, so they will require masks, and if there's a reason why someone can't wear a mask, then they will be implementing alternate plans for that person, just kind of in the same way that you see for businesses, so street side or having them wait in the car or whatever it happens to be. So there is nothing specific that says whether counties do or do not need to follow it, but the general consensus from us, WASAC staff, and in conversation with the governor's office is that we would recommend that you do. And we will seek further clarification, but that's our recommendation to you for now. Regarding the OPMA, the governor's office was able to secure another extension to the beginning of August this time. They had asked to go to September, but they were not able to get that. And the changes that you should be aware of for it is that if you're in a phase 3 county and you want to meet in person, you are allowed to do that if you follow all of the social distancing requirements and you provide a remote option as you have been, and you provide overflow space in the event that more people show up than your socially distanced space allows. We know from some counties that you'll have to probably just stick with the remote access because you don't have space for the overflow space. And so that is an ongoing conversation with the governor's office and their assigned attorney general, assistant attorney general. And so we'll keep working on that to see if we can't further clarify that to make it easier to meet in person. And we're supposed to all meet together sometime next week, but it hasn't been scheduled yet. And then the other thing that you should know is we had also made the request that phase 2 counties be able to meet up to 5 people. Phase 3, as you know, is up to 50. Phase 2, up to 5, which means that councils with 5 members or commissions with 5 members or less could probably meet in person and then have everyone else, the general public, on the remote line. And they denied us that request. Basically, the reasons for that were because it really doesn't apply to very many agencies. Really, for the most part, it's just the 3-member county commissions that would be able to do it. So they felt like there was a fairness issue there. And they also had concerns about appearance issues, that public would think that you meeting together, you were only coming online and showing them what you wanted them to see, as opposed to being more broadly open. That one doesn't really fly with me too much. I understand more of the equitable application of it from the first issue, but we'll continue to talk about that one as well. I know some counties have been meeting with their commissioners in person and with the public still remotely. And so I would suggest that you consult your local prosecutor to see whether they have any concerns with you doing that. And with that, I don't think I have anything else to update. So there is a question in the chat box. So let me see what this says. Many counties rarely have very many people attend their meetings. In that case, we're interpreting to go ahead without an overflow room. If there are too many people, can't we just go to virtual only, call the session back after a delay? I think that would probably be okay, because it does have a portion in the rule that says if the social distancing can't be maintained, then you have to disband or delay the meeting until it can be. So while they want you to have the overflow space, they didn't specifically address this instance, but it seems logical. But again, that's probably something that you might want to have your prosecutor take a look at, just to make sure that, because sometimes logical doesn't mean it's actually the right thing to do. So I would suggest you have them take a look, but I also think that that's the type of question that we need to be talking with the governor's office when we do have that conversation next week. So hopefully more specifics to come. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Derek, unless anybody has any further questions, but I'll stay on the line. So if anything comes up, I'll be here.
Looks like we've got a question from Commissioner Sutton.
Okay.
Go ahead, Commissioner. We show you're unmuted, but we're not hearing you, Commissioner Sutton.
Commissioner, oh, I'll sign out and back in. Okay. We can come back to it when he's back on.
All right, thanks, Melanie. All right. Well, we're going to transition to a few live polls that we have set up for today. If you had a chance to review the COVID daily email, there was a notice in there. We had originally scheduled to talk about wildfire and emergency management, but unfortunately had to reschedule. I will say on behalf of, I think, all the WASAC staff, we are starting to have a number of delays with state agencies in them having to deal with the furloughs that are now on their individual offices. So a number of folks out, and it's complicating things at times. So we're going to try to reschedule that, but we do have a few questions that we've got queued up to help spur some conversation along. And on the topic of public health and masks, we're really curious about how you are handling masking and masking complaints. And so we've got a live poll that I'm going to launch now, and we'd love to hear your feedback. So how's your county answering masking and other complaints? Are you referring them to the state? Are you handling them locally? Or are you providing educational resources? So if you could please take a few moments to respond to that, that'd be great. Give it a few more seconds here and we'll close out the poll. All right, and 3, 2, 1. Share those out. So it looks like a significant number of you are providing educational resources. And if there's anyone on the line that would like to share any thing that they're doing that might be unique and beneficial for others to know about, we'd love for you to share that with us now. You can either raise your hand or just automatically unmute yourself or add it to the chat box. So any thoughts on there on providing educational resources and what's been helpful? Or maybe more importantly, what else in the educational resources realm do you need from possibly state agencies? All right. Well, if any thoughts come to mind on educational resources, we'd love to hear about those so that we can share those with appropriate agencies. Next question, this has come up, this has been a bit of a theme that we saw this week in our various meetings, and this is around public health burnout. So we're going to launch a poll here. How concerned are you about staff burnout in your public health department? If you could take a few moments to respond. Give about 5 more seconds here. All right. I'm going to go ahead and share these out. And as we expected, very concerned there on public health burnout. We are really curious, and this is part of one of the discussion questions that we've got is, has your county done anything to recognize the work of your public health staff? Are you planning to provide additional funding resources to beef up staff to help alleviate some of that stress that they're feeling? What kind of things are going on out there to help public health staff? It looks like Commissioner Sutton, you've got your hand up. If you'd like to go ahead and unmute yourself.
Am I audible?
We can hear you.
Very nice. I don't want to take away from the question you're asking right now because I think it's an incredibly important one. If you're all right, I wanted to go back to the requiring masking and the policies on that briefly.
Certainly.
That would be, my concern is how do we educate our staff how and when to ask why they're not wearing a mask, or would they like to be wearing a mask with HIPAA and some of those concerns. And the broad question is, by doing so and perhaps doing it incorrectly, do we open up individual counties for litigation by doing that?
I think I have seen some actual resources on this, so I will look and send that out. But my recommendation to you would be not to overcomplicate it. I would say if someone comes without a mask, tell them that, remind them that mask usage is mandated, and ask them if they can put on a mask or if they need other accommodations. And I would just kind of leave it at that. I kind of liken it to a service animal where you can't really ask them why they have the animal. You just sort of have to take their word for it. And I would just, so I would maybe have, it's like a 2-question thing. Can you wear a mask? If you can't wear a mask, how can we accommodate you? Or here's our plan on how we can accommodate you. You go pull your car up to the curbside and we'll bring you out whatever it is you need, something like that. But I will take a look because I just really feel like I've seen something, but I can't put my finger on it at the moment. And when I find it, I'll send that out so you have a little better answer than what I just gave you.
All right, looks like we've got a question from Councilmember Stevens. If you'd like to go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to go to Commissioner Sutton. Roche Harbor, which is a resort marina, has taken a positive approach of kind of having an ambassador, and if somebody's not wearing a mask, of offering one and taking the approach of, you know, help us stay open. You know, if you're here to have fun and enjoy yourself, then help us stay open by complying with the mask order.
I like that, Jamie. That's actually precisely the public service message that we're giving at our county level here to our local citizens. If you enjoy shopping in our business, if you enjoy patroning our restaurants, help us stay open by wearing a mask.
And Robin Campbell just put something in the chat box that I would encourage people to take a look at. I'm not sure if it's the document I was thinking of or not, but it has a lot of good information in here in regard to best practices for business owners, which I think you could adopt. Politely educate the customer or visitor if they still decline. Politely inquire as to whether they have a medical condition or disability that prevents them. Do not inquire about the specifics. Encourage to offer some kind of accommodation, etc. So yeah, I think this probably is the document that I was thinking of. So thank you, Robin. You saved me from having to do the Google search. So definitely take a look at that, folks. And Derek, if we haven't already, this might be something to put in one of our COVID emails.
You can definitely do that, yeah. It looks like Councilmember Brown had a question.
Yeah, has anybody thought or tried to offer a face shield, a low-cost face shield to someone who won't wear a mask?
I have not heard of that specifically, but if anybody else on the phone has, I think I would welcome the responses.
It's a quiet group out there today.
Councilmember, I'll let you know if I hear of anything.
I think everybody's wearing a mask and we can't hear them.
That must be it, yes.
And certainly I think the general consensus is that a face mask is better than nothing. So it certainly may be a possibility. And so I'll see if anybody knows anything.
All right, any thoughts out there? We can change over to a new topic, but any thoughts on what's being done to recognize the work of your county public health department? Any additional support that you all are providing? I know there was a appetite for wanting to know about ideas that might be out there. All right, well, if any come to mind, please feel free to share those in the chat box. We'd love to hear about them. Great way for us to get some information out on social media as well. So any of those stories are helpful. So now we're going to switch over to Coronavirus Relief Fund. We are very curious. I know a number of counties are starting to start their grant application process, and we're curious how that's going. And what the need looks like out there. So we've got a question here that I'm going to launch, and it is: has your county begun accepting grant applications for small business assistance? And please take a moment to go ahead and respond to that.
And maybe while they're responding, I'll just take the opportunity to remind everybody that while next week is technically not a call week, we did decide to go ahead and fill up your Monday and Tuesday with phone calls or webinars, I guess. Everything is still a phone call to me. On Monday, we have James McMahon from WASPIC, the Sheriff's and Police Chiefs, to talk about a police reform proposal that they have been telling legislators about. And on Tuesday, we have several people from the Department of Commerce coming to talk about how they plan to move forward with the CRF funds that they've been given, and which does include small business. So please join us for that one at least, so we can make sure you all are coordinating and spending the money in a manner that spreads it as far as possible. If you need that information, let me know. It did go out, so hopefully you have it, but if not, let me know.
Thank you for that, Melanie. And I did share out those results. Looks like about 50% of you that are on the phone or on the meeting today have started the application process for small business assistance. So now we're going to move into our next question, which we're curious about, which is how much have you allocated out of the coronavirus relief funds that you've received from the state? How much have you allocated towards assistance to small businesses? So you could take a moment to give everyone a few more seconds, and we're going to close that poll out. Quite impressive. About 50% of you on this call have committed $1 million or more towards small business relief. So it's really great to see. This is really great information that we can share back out. So thank you all for taking time to respond to that. And then we're really curious about how you're going about, and if you've got any partnerships in place to get this money out and to assist with the grant process. So our last live question of the day is, has your county partnered with any of the following to assist in getting coronavirus relief funds distributed? And it is a multiple choice option, so give it a few more seconds here. All right, sharing that back out here now. It looks like economic development councils have been the one that everyone's been turning to there. So thank you again for sharing this information. Again, this is very, very helpful. So we've got the question for this topic here, and that is, we've been discussing this with a number of groups, and we're just looking to get any additional thoughts that you may have on this. But as you are all very well aware of, the state has about $240 million in coronavirus relief funds that are still eligible to go to local government. We are still advocating that the legislature and the governor's office release those funds out to you all as soon as possible. But we really need to know what else those dollars could be utilized for. Are there still projects out there that you're looking at and wondering how you're going to be able to fund those? I know that there's still questions, ongoing questions around providing quarantine housing and the costs associated with that. So we'd love to hear your feedback and what's going on in your counties and where those extra dollars could potentially be utilized. So by all means, enter those into the chat box. Feel free to raise your hand or just go ahead and unmute yourself and jump in there and share your thoughts.
So
lots of comments coming in the chat box. Anyone want to talk about it? Commissioner Ricardo, it looks like you've unmuted.
yeah, so we could use some of those additional funds to purchase an ambulance that was set up to be able to be sanitized for communicable disease. Right now, you practically have to line the entire ambulance with plastic, and then it takes hours and hours and hours to clean it up because it's not set up to do that. and that's about $175,000.
Right. Looks like Commissioner Funds commenting, it's frustrating that we can't use the funds for matching USDA grant for distant learning and telemedicine. We have heard about that. An interesting one. Any other thoughts out there that anyone would like to share? Okay. Well, thank you all for entering into the chat box those thoughts. Those are really great. More testing, tapped out. The additional funds would help us meet our response obligations for the next 6 months. Great. Well, as you continue to think about this topic, please feel free to email anyone on staff. We would love to have these examples as we continue to advocate that they release these funds sooner rather than later. We know that they can be a huge, huge help to your communities. So
I'm going to cut you off just for a sec, Derek. Sorry. I would really echo what Derek is saying, because when we do talk to the governor's office about it, they always ask us what you've spent the money on or what you're planning to spend the money on and what you would spend additional money on. So examples like you've been giving, and if you come up with other ones, are so helpful to be able to actually tell the story rather than having it be just, you know, this amorphous thing that doesn't feel real. Being able to, like, something concrete like the ambulance or the testing or things like that, that's just really helpful information for us. So please do email me, Derek, Jamie, and because we'd love to amass as much as you can provide us. And we'll be keeping copies of the stuff that you put in the chat box. So thank you. Keep going. If you've got ideas, just keep sticking them in there. We'll take them. Thank you. Sorry, Derek, for cutting you off.
No, that's great. We got some good ideas rolling in there, so really appreciate it. So we're going to go ahead and move into a roundtable discussion now. This is an opportunity for you to share what's going on in your county. I will go ahead and randomly select folks if no one wants to jump in and start talking about things, but we do have some questions up on the last slide here to kind of get you thinking. We definitely like to know what's still keeping you up at night, what's got you worried now. What's one thing that's working really well in your county that you'd love to share out? Has the use of masks gone up in your community? I know that's been a big question right now, and we heard some positive feedback earlier in the week, but we'd love to hear more about how the mask requirements going, and ultimately, where do you still need additional assistance at? We'd love to hear that feedback as well. So does anyone want to jump in and answer any of these questions or provide some insight into what's going on in their county? And I'll start randomly calling on people. Oh, Commissioner or Councilmember Brown, if you'd like to kick things off.
Yep. Hi. So a couple of things. I think the biggest worry, the unsolved problem at the moment, is going to be childcare, and pardon me, the impact on the ability to people going back to work. I wanted to respond. There was a question in the chat box about helping schools with broadband. I think actually the answer is we can't put in fiber optic cable with CARES dollars, but we can help students with Comcast access under their Internet Essentials plan. We can help them with MiFi cellular access. And I put a note in there that Commerce had confirmed that we can prepay those contracts for at least 12 months. And we're even looking at some areas where there's neither cellular or cable or DSL. And we're looking at potentially putting in satellite. Problem with satellite is it has a data cap on it. Mask use has gone up fairly significantly in the community. And then one suggestion I wanted to throw out is, I've been saying to people, look, if you've spent money on COVID-related stuff, but it doesn't fall into our priority at the moment to spend money to reimburse you, give us the invoices anyway, because on October 30th, if we haven't spent it all, we'll start picking invoices out of a box and reimbursing for those, because I don't want to leave any money on the table.
There's some questions in the chat box about the prepayment, and I was looking at all of this stuff yesterday, so I just have to remember where I saw it, but Commerce did put out an answer to that, and it's basically, if it's something that you would do in the normal course, like you generally would prepay for that kind of thing, if it wasn't COVID related, then you can prepay for it now when it is COVID related. But I will find the specifics and I'll put it in the chat box.
Thanks, Melanie, and thank you, Councilmember Brown. Any other counties interested in jumping in without being called on? Answering any of these questions?
Yeah, this is Bob Johnson.
Yeah, Commissioner Johnson.
And, we were wondering if you can get funds for helping put videos and stuff in the courtroom so that we don't have to have prisoners or anyone else have to come into meetings and stuff in the courtroom. Can you use some of those funds for that?
I'll take this one too. Yes, I think the answer is yes. Having to reformat courtrooms to accommodate social distancing and safety matters certainly would be allowable, but keep in mind as you're thinking about that to be in close contact with your IT manager or director as well as your judges, because the administrative office of the courts was given about $11 million to put out 2 trial courts. And again, now AOC, I talked to AOC and they said they don't think that's enough money. So they're not worried about overspend, but we don't want you spending something that you don't need to either when funds are tight. So AOC is putting together a plan and they hope to have it done this week, and we're going to send it to me, but I haven't seen it. So hopefully I'll get it next week. And if not, I'll follow up. And once we have their plan from them, if it's something that we want to have a conversation with them, like we're having with Commerce, we can definitely set that up. But so yeah, just keep in mind that much like the small business and rental assistance and things like that, there's also court money available.
Thank you.
Yep.
And Commissioner Shin, go ahead.
Yeah, we've been operating from the start after a talk with Commerce and asking the question on one of these chats that anything you do to improve the technical infrastructure to allow people to be able to telecommute or teleremote or do business with the county is acceptable expenditure of CARES money, because you're improving the separation and everything else, and it's a direct result of COVID. So there's nothing's changed on that, has there?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, because the last question made me doubt it. So I'm just wanting to make sure that's okay, because on chats with Commerce, we heard that, and then we heard it on here as well.
No, the rules, the basic high level rules are basically if it's necessary as a response to COVID, it's okay. I mean, obviously there's a little more specifics underneath that, but that's generally what you have to look out for. So I think you're still fine. I think it's still good guidance.
Okay, this is Bob Johnson. I was told that if it wasn't in your budget, you know, and you couldn't use the CARES dollars for that. Is that wrong?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you very well. Could you repeat it while I turn my my volume up?
Well, when we were told using the CARES money, you had to pretty much have something that wasn't in your budget already. Can you still change things to use that money?
It basically says if it can't be something that was already in your budget unless what you budgeted for and what you're doing is substantially different. So say, for example, you had a staff person that you already budgeted for the existence of that staff person, but you budgeted for that staff person to be, I'm totally making this up, an accountant. And what you ended up using that person for because of COVID is as a contact tracer. You could then pay for that person's salary out of the CARES funds, even though it was technically budgeted before. So anything that's substantially different, and that's kind of up to your interpretation and what you think is justifiable, you can go ahead and use CARES money for that.
All right. Anyone out there want to tackle any of these questions? If not, I'm going to go ahead and start calling on some folks.
I'll say something.
Yeah, go ahead, Commissioner Fun.
So we talked about the masks earlier, and I read in there about that these were not appropriate. So I had talked to our medical director, and she said, if somebody can't wear one of these because of medical issues, they might be able to wear one of these. So she said, these are better than nothing. And then she went on to say, if you are wearing one of these, there's also some that have like cloth that comes down further. So I don't know if L&I addresses that, but that's what our medical director was telling us. And being kind of the famous county with our sheriff and wearing masks and don't be sheep and all that kind of stuff, I've seen more masks being used, and there's been some folks that wanted to have events, but they have decided not to have them. There's one this weekend that I know some folks are watching. Mr. Culp is coming over here and going to be at a local area, and supporters are supposed to meet him. And I don't know how they're doing that, you know, no less than 50 people, social distancing, etc. But it's been quite the experience over here. So, and what's keeping me up at night is what I put up on the chat line is not being able to use our funds to match federal grants. And when we had East County, very rural county, in distance learning and telemed, very appropriate uses. And we are still working at it. The deadline is Tuesday, but it just seems strange that we can't use those funds. I know normally that's not the case. That's the way they have it, but this is not normal. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner Fund. Let's see here. Commissioner Janicki, any updates from Skagit County that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, today this goes back to the small business grants conversation. Today we just awarded the first round of grants, and we kind of we called it a lightning round because we took the 30 grant submittals that had gone to the Department of Commerce through the Growing Washington program, but had not been funded by Commerce, and were able to award so very quickly. That was $164,000 that went out today. We have a total bucket of $1 million, and on Monday, our applications will become available for a 2-week period. And our applications are a max of $25,000 grants, and are available for both small business and nonprofits. So, and like a lot of people, the EDASC is running that because we're comparing to what the cities are awarding. Anacortes, Mount Vernon, Sedro-Woolley, and Lyman all did grant pools too. So we're just making sure there's not double dipping across those pools of money within the county cities. And, you know, it's always we got very positive reaction. 3 of the businesses who were receiving funds today got on to the Zoom meeting and spoke very, about how much it makes a difference. And I just think it's, it's just really, it's good. It's good to hear it, and it's good to be able to broadcast that during one of our commissioner meetings. So we put a lot of work into the application structure and the language and the nuance of the language. And so I'm happy to share that document if that's helpful for other counties.
We would also love to get a copy of that as well, Commissioner. That's something that we like to share out on our coronavirus page as additional resources that counties can turn to. So if you wouldn't mind sending that to WASAC staff as well, that would be great.
I will absolutely do that. I got to get a clean copy from staff. I have lots of R1, R2, R3 documents, but let me get a clean copy.
I understand how that is. Thank you so much. We also get another question from Commissioner Shin, who was interested in what percentage of your total CARES money are you using to support local business?
Yeah, sure. That we got 7.1 million. About 5.2 million we had to we allocated towards public health and the response there. Million out of 7 million is what we're using. We're putting towards the small business grant program.
Great, thank you. And Commissioner Shin, since you're already there, would you like to share any other thoughts about what's going on in Nessota County?
Well, it's kind of interesting on a multitude of subjects. We have a Costco. Lewiston across the river in Idaho doesn't. So we get people from Idaho that don't really want to wear their masks. And I guess the news had a story the other night about somebody who refused to wear a mask and they let them do their shopping anyway. But I would have to say as a whole, everywhere my wife and I go, we see lots more people wearing masks. So I think that's a good thing. Talking about the CARES dollars, we teamed up through our SWEDA ADO for Whitman, Garfield, and Nessota counties, and we've already given away about $463,000, but that wasn't CARES money. That was all local businesses out of special money from Commerce. But so far, when we look at our $1.2 million total CARES package and what we're doing to improve infrastructure to allow more remote business and putting barriers up in all the offices and hiring security and everything else, we think we may be able to put like 10% of it into that. That's why I was curious what the group as a whole was allocating. We have a standalone health department and they got $800,000 all by themselves because they're not a county health district. They are their own, thing, although we're on their board. So I'm curious, what does everybody allocate, to economic for relief for small businesses?
Yeah, please feel free to put that in the chat box or unmute yourself. It looks like San Juan County allocated 16% there. And we can provide, Commissioner Shin, we can provide you a copy of the group chat as folks start to enter in their allocation percentages. Commissioner Johnson, I see that you've unmuted yourself.
I did, and thank you. So CARES Act dollars, first of all, we sat down with the cities, a lot of Port Angeles, Forks, and Sequim, all quite different, to think about how to allocate those. And the cities, of course, each one has a different emphasis, i.e. Port Angeles is looking at rent relief and utility relief. Sequim was focusing on businesses in many ways. But anyway, long story short, we said we need to allocate our money not necessarily equally, and I'll come back to that in a second, on rent relief and utility assistance, obviously public health, food security, business support, childcare, and homelessness. And what keeps me awake at night. I'll come to that at the end, which is on the homelessness side. But again, on the business side, we also partnered with Craft 3 to look at, just as one of the toolkits, to we put some money into that entity, and they've matched it ×5, and they are loans, but low cost loans and very favorable kinds of loans. And that's up to $500,000. The county put in $100,000 of that, and Craft 3, being a nonprofit, put in the balance. And that's where we've done keeping lights on for all the different nonprofits that are tourism related, many of which were close to going out of business and or might have gone out of business. Big important thing for us. And we've done that through our LTAC committee and put about $250,000 into that category. In the case of businesses, our first round, when we went through the block grant that came down from Commerce, we had 650 businesses that applied in our county. Total amounted to, and I didn't look at all of them, unfortunately I know many of the businesses, and that was over $5 million of requests. And the city of Squints put in about 300,000. Our first block out of the to hopefully fill in where Squim hasn't, and a lot of places, is to add another 200,000. We hope we can put more into that category, and that's done through the Economic Development Council, working with the chambers, and each of the cities have someone on that board. They've got a really good process to vet those and to go forward. Again, like I said, what we're allocating is our first round isn't even going to make a dent in what the total requests are. And certainly if we had more, we'd put more into that area. Childcare, we are very short on childcare. We worked with the 3 largest Boys Girls Club, the Y, the Pool District has a childcare thing. We're allocating about $150,000 plus and minus. Obviously, childcare with the new COVID constraints that one has and distancing and everything else, the costs have gone up so that they're about $1.25 of cost versus what was $1 before, or in some cases $1.50. We recognize that's not enough either, and we're certainly going to be short in the way of childcare. And then homelessness. Our homeless group, the largest one being Serenity House, obviously to meet the the social distancing requirements, everything else, their capacity went from 120 down to 70 roughly. So we picked up and found another location to put people. Obviously, this is not a long-term solution. And so we've allocated several $100,000 to that. We really need to add to more space there. And what we used to look at maybe is 120 people total. I bet our total is now about 180 people, so that population has grown. And then finally, in the case of food security, we're trying to work with the food banks, all 3 of them, and add some lockers that they can have that will keep cool food cool. So we tried to put all those things together. Don't have an absolute great answer for anything. The demand obviously is far larger than what we have. Obviously I know because of so many businesses are hurting, and we're still in phase 2, and some of those businesses probably won't be able to open up, I bet, for at least another month. And you look at their financial situation, and so we're trying to get money out as at least in step 1, and we haven't decided yet where we're going to go with step 2, but I'm absolutely certain that our commissioners are going to step up and try to help the business committee with some additional help. But we definitely need to also work on the whole homelessness issue, because there's never a good solution, but right now where we are is in a really bad situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And it looks there that in Lewis County, they're very fortunate. They've got a food bank that is full of food available for folks. So that's really great to hear. So we've got about 5 minutes left. I do want to open it up to anyone that's got any burning questions or thoughts or additional comments that they'd like to throw out to the group while we've got everyone on the line. So if there's anything out there, feel free to drop it in the chat box or raise your hand or just go ahead and unmute yourself. All right. Well, if no one has anything else, I do want to give you a couple of reminders. One is our daily COVID email that we send out. We are going to be changing that publication schedule starting next week, so they will be going out on Tuesdays and Thursdays only. You won't be getting a daily email from us any longer, though we would encourage you to continue to visit our coronavirus page for any updates and resources. If there's any urgent news that we need to get out, we'll definitely make sure to email you that day, but news has been light over the last couple of weeks, and so we're going to ramp that down a bit. And then a reminder that we will have Commerce joining us on Tuesday at noon to discuss coronavirus relief funds and answer any questions that you may have. Feel free to send questions ahead of time so that Commerce can be prepared to answer those for you live instead of having to wait for them to go back and do some additional research. So please feel free to send those to our info box or to any of the staff, and we'll get those passed along to Commerce. And we want to thank all of you for everything that you're doing, and hopefully you all have a lovely weekend ahead. So thanks for joining, and have a good evening.